Welcome to Thanks, I Needed That. Today we're going to be talking about somebody that's actually a little bit special to you. He's given you a bit of a change in your perspective, has helped you in your journey towards gratitude. His name is Sadhguru, and he has a YouTube video. He has plenty of YouTube videos, but one in particular is actually called The Secret to True Happiness, How Gratitude Changes Everything. Can you tell us a little bit about Sadhguru?
Yes, I can, but I would say that he's special, but there's a lot of special. You're special too, buddy.
You're special
I mean,
too.
I've had a lot of perspective shifts from you as well, so thank you for that. That being said, yeah, Sadhguru, he is a speaker. He is an author. He actually leads an organization, a spiritual organization, through way of yoga, and they do all kinds of cool stuff. So that is something for you guys to look into. But the way that I was introduced to him actually was by listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. There's a lot of people that I listen to that I get a lot of great stuff from Joe Rogan. So shout out to Joe. Yeah, so he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was just sharing his thoughts about life and the way he sees challenge. And man, it really is something that while I was listening, I was just thinking, this is so profound. It's not what you would normally look at life like, you know, especially in the face of adversity or challenge. And he just has such a perspective that if I could emulate the way that he sees life, man, I know my life would be so much more joy-filled.
Sure.
So that is definitely something that I got from that podcast. And that by way of that, you know, I wanted to learn more and study kind of how he sees things. And we have a really great episode today where I think we're going to get into some of the meat and potatoes of that. So.
Yeah, so let's get right to it.
Yeah.
We have a couple of points that we want to hit. One of them is that gratitude shifts our focus from lack to ambition, or rather to abundance.
Yeah.
Lack to abundance. As he was speaking about it, he's saying how we can wake up with a mindset of everything that's missing in our lives, or we can wake up with thinking about all the blessings that we have, that we're alive, that we woke up and have another day to live. We can breathe, we have food, we have loved ones, we have enough. If we shift our perspective and consider all the blessings of our life, or we can just think, oh man, I have to go to work. Oh man, I have this practice that I have to do. I have this homework that I haven't done. I have this job that I hate. I have this coworker that annoys the heck out of me, and I have to spend 8 hours of my day in office with him or her. We can have either one of those perspectives.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you feel that way, buddy, because I actually enjoy sitting here next to you. So
Listen, we're not together for 8 hours, so, you know.
that's true, and I don't think he would say that about me.
No.
We're practicing gratitude. He can't say that. But no, actually, so I think about, again, waking up and thinking about all the things that I have to do. And it's interesting because I've listened to other coaches and, you know, self-development coaches talk about this. And it's interesting because some of them even have the perspective of, like, if you want to plan, like, start your day planning doing this, and not to say that that's the wrong thing to do, but some of them will even say, like, plan the night before or have a weekly plan, and look, all of that's great, but I do think that it's so important to really just focus at times, and I think the morning is such a special moment when you first wake up, to really focus on the moment and the fact that you're present with what you're feeling, the beauty of being able to wake up in a bed. You know, again, all of these things are experiences that are unique to our lives. Maybe it's not a comfort pediatric plus, whatever that might be. That would be cool, right?
Yeah.
But you know, regardless, just thinking about waking up in general and having the ability to experience life in its fullness, that is something that is so unique, and we don't really think about life that way. He talked about how, you know, just thinking about the fact that you're even breathing Think about the sunlight that's coming into the windows. It's so profound to think about life that way, because again, you can get sucked into the hustle and bustle and try and plan all these things that you're going to accomplish and do. And I'm definitely driven in that way. But I think also when I get into that hustle and bustle mode, especially if I'm doing it from the first moment that I wake up, there's so many beautiful moments that I'm missing there. That again, I think that if I just took the moment to quickly, and it doesn't have to be like that's my entire morning, but just to say, wow, I'm so grateful for all of the things that I'm experiencing right now, I think that would change my day for sure.
I think it would change everybody's day. And it is a trap that we all fall into, which is we just think about what we don't have instead of thinking about what we do have. And the way he phrased it is that it essentially changes our life from one of struggle to one of thinking about how it is a gift.
Yeah.
And I think, I fall into that at times when I'm going through my day. I'm thinking, well, I'm not where I want to be in life, but when I get this, I'll have that. I'll have that peace. I'll have that love. I'll have that happiness. But as soon as I start thinking that way, at least in the past couple of months, I've been reframing it like, no. You're there.
Yeah.
You enjoy now. Enjoy what you have, because all of this prepares us to the next step. And when you have that bit of happiness now, it changes your day, and it changes how you go from maybe anxiety of not having something to the fulfillment of knowing you're happy now. You're blessed now.
Yeah. I think that that's beautiful. I think that when I think about the ups and downs of life, you go through these seasons, I'm sure everyone does, where they're at the top of the world and, you're so grateful about things that are happening in your life. And then you could go down to the bottom where it's like, man, everything is going wrong. I think about my life and how, I've experienced those up and downs, and it's been obviously tougher to think about gratitude in the tough times. But I do think about how when I have made the practice to really focus on gratitude, even in the tough times, I think that those are some of the moments that really I think about the most. There was a moment where I know that I was really struggling financially, and it was tough for me to find work at that moment. And I remember I was like, all right, I'm just going to have a good routine. I'm going to go through the process of applying and having a good attitude and focusing on what I do have. And I remember I would go to the gym and just get on the treadmill and run. And I just remember thinking, like, it's so beautiful, and I'm so lucky that I get to do this. Even I have a roof over my head. I can jump on the treadmill. I have my health, and that was something that was so important to me. And I think that again, that's just a moment. Like, it was so subtle in the sense that I wasn't really doing anything profound, but it's something that is ingrained in my brain. I just remember reciting how grateful I was about the things that I was experiencing at that moment. And it's a moment that I think about. And just to share another quick story, I think about when I have had those. I think that something that I like to do as a practice to start with gratitude is, I know that when I wake up in the morning, something that I feel, is like, okay, I might have to get into the routine of work or figure out what I'm going to do for that day or whatever. But I try to win a battle over the mind to kind of say, all right, I'm in control of things. And then when I win the battle of the mind, I feel gratitude, because I'm like, all right, I know that I didn't want to do that, and most of the time it's working out. So like if I go for a run, I used to say I'm terrible at running. I hate running. It was like just torture to me. And I used to listen to David Goggins, which I love David Goggins, but he goes to this place where it's literally torture that he does to himself. And I feel like, that's what he teaches others to like, is like the torture. But I really do think it's also the battle of, again, making yourself do something that's uncomfortable, and then feeling the win of that, and then basking in the gratitude of, wow, I have complete control over my destiny and control over what my day looks like. Even though my mind was telling me, don't get out of bed, don't put on your shoes, don't go run. And it's these steps. You're like taking baby steps. This baby wins. Okay, I put my shoes on. Now I got to get out of the house. Okay, the kids are saying they want breakfast. Okay, do that real quick and then get out of the house. But again, it's just that's a practice that I feel like when I'm really in the zone of practicing gratitude, that's something that really helps me is starting my day with doing that one thing that I know I can accomplish and win at, and then think about the gratitude of being able to experience that.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully stated. We also want to talk about how he mentioned that gratitude rewires the brain for positivity, which is something that we've covered in past episodes. If you've watched some of them, especially the Huberman episode, that he went in depth into studies that have looked into how the brain is rewired. How serotonin, how dopamine is released in the brain, how neural pathways are created that help us become more positive and really intake positivity and apply it into our lives.
Yeah, so I think that when I'm experiencing gratitude, it definitely allows me to take a breath. I feel like when I'm in a position where I'm thinking about the external and all the things that are weighing on me or the things that I want to accomplish, it's not that I don't find joy in accomplishing things or, again, the challenge of accomplishing things, but I do feel like if I get into that ether of being in that place for too long, I can tire myself out, and it can get exhausting. I can carry that for a long time because when I get in the mode of work, it's really hard for me to disconnect sometimes. And it can be, maybe a week-long project or longer, whoever, whatever it may be. But I think that carrying that weight, it can affect all aspects of your social life, of your personal, well-being, and just to understand that it can reduce your stress. Just a normal practice of gratitude can reduce your stress. It can also affect your breathing, your anxiety. There were a lot of profound things that it actually affected, but one of the things that I remember, it talked about how it can impact your social life and how you interact with others. And I think that that's something for sure for me. I can have mood swings very quickly depending on how work is going.
I couldn't tell at all. I've never seen that in you.
Well, it's because I'm just a nice guy. But,
yeah, of course.
We're joking, guys. We're joking. But having fun. Yeah, so I think that for me, when I'm practicing gratitude, I feel more joy. I feel more at peace. I feel more present, which I think is probably the number one thing that I'm trying to practice, is really being present with the people that are in my life around me, as well as the things that are happening, because so many things get missed if again, I'm kind of in that world of really trying to hustle. But yeah, understanding that the normal practice of gratitude changes me in those ways. It's super impactful. I see it every day, and in the results as far as the practice that I've had so far.
I think one of the places where I notice it, again, since we've started to really take a focus on gratitude and exploring this journey, is in traffic. Because, I don't have road rage or anything like that, but I like to get to places. And there's times when I'm
still working on that one.
yeah, I'm driving behind somebody that has a lot of peace, apparently, has a lot of patience, maybe more so than me.
Sometimes you got to admire that.
Sometimes you do. And
you got to be grateful
for
the peace that they have.
That's the work that I'm doing personally. And I have noticed that I am a little bit less... how would I put this? I'm a little more hesitant in honking the horn or yelling even inside the car, or, well, I don't really yell, but I get upset though. I get upset and I speed, and there's something in me that has a little bit of anger. But now I'm starting to think more about that. You know what? I'm okay. I'm on the road. I'm on a car. I'm going to get to where I'm going to get to when I'm meant to get to that place. I have a little bit more peace. I feel a little bit more positive. And it's the same thing with arguments with friends or family. Again, not that it happens all the time. I'm not somebody that just argues. But when I feel like something's going to get to an argument, I shift my mind and I just go with, okay, we see what's about to happen. Let's change this to something positive. Let's make a positive comment. Let's see what good there is in this instead of what the negative could be, which is I want to get my way, they want to get their way, but I'm going to win. No, it's not about winning. It's about let's come to a place where, we can both get something out of this and grow, and maybe the day gets better because instead of falling into that trap of negativity, you allow gratitude for the moment. The fact that, it's a person that you don't spend a lot of time with, you're getting to be with them. Shift your mind from I want this to, oh, I get to be with you here in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's funny because, something like traffic, you don't even think about traffic in your general day to day as like something that impacts your life.
But it does.
But it does.
Yes.
And for you, it especially does. But in a good way now, because you're going to experience it in a positive way.
I'm glad Joey's not here because she may say something different. Since she sees my driving day to day, but I think I've gotten better. I hope she'd be able to say that.
And again, I think it's the practice of knowing that is something that is a challenge, and going to that place and looking at it differently, seeing it through that other lens, and then having the gratitude to know that is something that's changing in you. Yeah.
And speaking of challenges, the next point is that gratitude helps to handle adversity by finding meaning.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because I think that so many times we're trying to find the meaning of what is life, and what is my life look like? What am I doing in this place? And I just think that when it comes to life in general, it has to be that you experience challenge and moments where there's adversity, because what would life really be if it were just perfect all the time, right? We say we want a perfect life.
Yeah, but we don't.
No, we don't. I mean I think that you the interesting thing about adversity and challenge is that it creates this feeling of like I can accomplish being better than that challenge, or I can work myself through this even though it's hard and it's not what I want. I know that I'll come out the other side better. And I think that is the really interesting part about life, is that there are all these lessons that you can learn, and he talks about how the gift of life is teaching us all the time.
Right.
And it's in the good times, it's in the hard times. I mentioned it earlier about how if in the ups and downs, the ups are easy.
Sure.
It's easy to be grateful in the high times, but in the low times, it can be very difficult. But I think that what I have really experienced in my life is when I look back at the most difficult and challenging times of my life, that is honestly where I learned the most. An afterthought. I think in the moment, I probably didn't handle it the best, and I know that gratitude has not always been there in the most difficult times of my life. But looking back, I think it shaped me in a way where I honestly am so grateful for those moments in my life, because it helped me to seek things like self-development and studying, like, how can I put myself in a position of peace and joy? Whereas if I may not have had some of those challenges, I may not have been seeking that understanding. But again, I think that this is really important, because how many times is it that we just get comfortable and we're thinking, oh, everything is going so great, and we're not looking for the gratitude. And again, even maybe when things are going really bad, we're not looking for it. But understanding that this is something that physically can change you, but also help magnetize those better moments and those better teachings into your life, where now you're in this place of, even though it's the worst moment I'm experiencing, I know that I'm going to get through this and I'm going to be better for it. That's so powerful.
Yeah, you can't appreciate the highs without experiencing the lows. Adversity shows us who we are. It shows us who others are. And without those, it's very easy to fall into a very vanilla lifestyle where, there's no struggle, so you're just comfortable. But as soon as something happens, and there are very serious adversities in life, the loss of a loved one, for example, which I remember to me, we both experienced it, unfortunately, but it's a part of life. And I remember that for me, I had the loss of my grandfather, which, to me, it stopped me on my tracks when it happened. And it stopped me for a long time mentally, because I kept thinking about what I could have done to change things to help him. And it wasn't until maybe a year or two after he passed that I was finally able to understand that, it is a part of life. He is, I believe, in a better place. He's not struggling. But now I can live for him. I can live in his honor. And instead of thinking about, oh, I lost him, I can think of, well, I gained him. He's still behind me. He's still supporting me. I just have to use that as motivation to be better, because I still have people here. I still have my parents. I still have my grandmother, my aunt, my siblings, my girlfriend, my loved ones that I can still push for and still be better for. So I can't get stuck just thinking about somebody who was a major part of my life, but think about the people that are still here, because life can still be great, and he can still be in my memory. He's still in all of our memories. We can still push forward. And I think of somebody else which is Malala Yousaf. She's a young girl. Well, now she's a woman. She lived in Pakistan, and she fought for women's rights in Pakistan, to the point where the Taliban went after her, went after where she was studying in school, and they shot her in the head. She lived. She was able to live. And now she's still fighting for those same rights. And I think about that mindset of knowing she was a girl at the time. She was a schoolgirl. Thinking and knowing you're doing something that can put your life in peril. And in a very serious manner, because here, we kind of take some things for granted,
Yeah.
that they don't over there, which is she's a girl who wanted to keep learning and keep studying, and she fought for that. And she got shot in the head. Miraculously, she lived, and she continues to fight for those rights. She could have easily quit.
Yeah.
She could have easily said, you know what, this can be dangerous for me, for my family, for my loved ones. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be so public about it either. But she didn't. As a girl, what gets you to that point where you're able to stand so firm in what you believe in that you're to the point of death and still push forward with it? We can talk about all the apostles doing the same thing, and a lot of people of faith that do it on a daily basis, soldiers that walk into battle knowing there's a chance that they'll die, and they still go through that. So to me, those adversities help me in my journey towards gratitude, even if I'm not the one experiencing them, because I think if these people can go through those things and still live a happy, joyful life, I don't, my struggles are my struggles, and obviously they're big to me because they are my struggles, but putting them into perspective, there's so many more blessings. And as long as I don't fall into the pit of being a victim and say, instead of why is this happening to me, ask, what is this teaching me? How can I build on this? How can I grow from this adversity? I think that's what helps us in our journey.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's heavy. I mean, I think that is awesome to think about, again, the adversity some of these people have gone through to still be able to push through and be happy and share that with others. That's amazing. I think that, we could both probably share that, like, look, we haven't been through that much adversity, and it's pretty amazing what they've done. But I also think that even on the lighter side, The little wins, I think, are what are the most important about gratitude, because I think that they build you up to the big wins. God forbid that anything happened to us that is that serious, where we have to fight through that. But not to say that it couldn't happen, but I think that if we have the practice beforehand, then it's easier to push through the large stuff. Right. I'll give a small example, a quick example here of when I talk to, I have a company where I manage employees, and it's interesting because we're in Orlando and it's hot. It's very hot. It rains in the summer almost every day. It's hot. It's muggy. And on those days where it's really hot, it's going to rain. It's really funny to see the attitude of some of these guys that come in. Some people are not fazed and not affected at all, but some of them are like, this is going to be the most terrible day. And then so it's a logistics company and they have to deliver to households, but they'll be like, oh, I have to deliver to this house. It's an apartment and it's 3 stories up and it's going to be so terrible and my day is ruined. And you just see how it impacts their lives so much. And I'll have conversations with them about like, look, when it comes to having these days, it really is all about mindset. So there's a really great quote that I like. It's, if you think that you can, you can. You're right. If you think that you can't, you can't. You're right. And it's all about mindset and understanding that your thoughts impact your ability to be successful. But even beyond that, it's the mindset of understanding what it is that you get to do. So I tell my guys, like, and girls, it's the difference between you can or you get to. Mm-hmm. And when you think about like life, for example, in their experience, if they're going to 4th flight of stairs and it's hot and it's muggy, they could be thinking about how terrible it is to have to do that work, or they could be thinking about how amazing it is that they get to do something that helps them support their families, and that they're going to get to go home and they're going to say, hey, look, I had a really hard day at work, but I made it back here and I'm so grateful that I did to get to experience these moments with you guys. I think that is that's the experiences that most of us have. The little things that you're like, okay, this is just what I have to do, and you're pushing through it, and it's hard, and again, you're battling like it's hot or like it's not something you want to do and it's terrible, but again, just reframing that and saying you get to, because not everyone has a roof over their head, not everyone gets to go home and eat after work, or and it could be much worse than that even. But I just think that the blessing of life is you are here, you're alive. You get to experience this in a way that is so beautiful, regardless of what that looks like. Yeah. If you can really find a way to focus on that in the challenging times, it's going to reshape the way that you see the world and the way that you interact with the world.
I think that's a great way to put it. And even though we're briefly covering it, it also carries over into the next topic, which is that gratitude transforms us from feeling powerless to feeling like we have control over our destiny.
Yeah, I think that when Sadhguru was talking about this, it was really resonating with me. I think that throughout my life, there's been moments for sure where I'm like, man, life is kicking my butt right now. Yeah. And I remember a specific conversation actually with my wife talking about like, she was like, what are you doing to try and find a job? Because like, I just was having zero luck finding a job. I'm like, I'm applying to Monster and Career Builder and all these platforms all day long, and I'm just not getting any hits. And I just remember like feeling so helpless in that time. But really looking back, it was a moment where, it was a flash in the pan. I had a really tough time financially, and there's some tough times that came from that. But looking back, it was just a part of my journey that helped me get to where I'm at today. And man, I'm so grateful that it played out the way that it did, because I'm positive I would not be where I'm at today without seeing those challenges and struggles. And I think that just feeling like at that time so helpless, and now being able to look back and say, man, that was just a part of my journey, and I'm grateful that I got to experience that. It changes you, you know. And I think that it's been a long time since I've felt that way, but I think that something that really helped me is going through that, seeing the other side, and then realizing, man, I can go through something really terrible
Mm-hmm.
and come out the other side better. And that, you know, that impacted every experience that I had from that point forward, where I was like, you know, man, if I lose this job, or if this business deal doesn't go right, and you know, things turn south, what's going to happen? I don't carry that weight anymore of feeling like I'm just going to be helpless, or that life is going to crush me from the weight of things. I really do have this feeling of like, life is happening for me, and I'm just so grateful that I am blessed to be on this journey and experience the things that I have, because I'm truly blessed. I'm in a place where there's so many things to be grateful about.
Agreed. This one is one that's very apparent, I think, to anyone in the entertainment industry, especially actors, because I've told you a little bit about the audition process. A lot of times you're filming auditions, recording auditions. Sometimes you're going in person into auditions. And most of the time, you hear nothing back. Sometimes you hear no straight away. And as an actor, as a performer, you have to be very thick skinned, because you have to be able to take that no and move forward, or take that silence and keep it out of your head, which at the beginning, I think for any actor, it's a struggle, because you want to hear that yes, you want to hear that, yeah, you've booked this gig, you've taken this role. But when you don't hear about it for months, and you're like, man, that was a really good project, it kind of starts messing with your head. And thankfully, I feel very blessed in that that didn't affect me as much as I know it affects other actors. Because to me, and I've told you this before, you've asked me about an audition, and I'm like, well, I auditioned, I feel I did good with it. Now we'll see what they decide. But I already forgot about it.
Yeah.
Like, I put it off my mind, because I don't have control over other people's decision, but I have control as to what my mindset is going to be and how I'm going to perceive the job. There's times that I stink at auditions. I remember my very first audition. Like, I went into the room feeling very confident, and I blanked out on my lines right there in front of the casting directors. But in other auditions, I feel pretty good, you know, and sometimes I've booked, which is an amazing blessing, but those bookings can happen 3 months later when I've already forgotten all about this audition, and I get that blessing randomly. Seemingly, it just falls from the sky. So now I take an approach of, you know, I control what I'm doing now, which is I'm going to continue looking for the next opportunity. If it falls for me, great. If it doesn't, there's something that's meant for me that's going to pop up down the road. And this, if you listen to any other actors on podcasts or interviews, most of them say the same exact thing, because their journeys are all different. All of our journeys are very different. Some make it very early in their lives. Some spend 10, 20, 30 years, like Morgan Freeman, for example, somebody who was doing plays in community theaters, and he didn't make it until he was in his 60s. But obviously now he's a household name. We all know who he is. And it's not necessarily about fame. It's about getting to the point where you've accomplished something. But I'm sure if you ask him about the journey, he probably enjoyed doing those small plays. He probably felt like it built his character. And the movies and the fame was more of a side benefit that came from all of that. But I think for me, it's a daily grind, a daily battle to make sure that I'm staying in the moment and understanding life isn't happening to me.
Yeah.
These things are not like a failure for me. I can learn from them, get better, I think for all of us perfectionists, we look back at performances and we think, oh man, I could have done this, I could have done that. And that's why I mostly don't watch any of my performances, including your best man speech. Like, I've never seen it since.
We're going to cue it up.
No, no, we're not. But I think we all are very critical, self-critical of our performances. And this is where you can just learn. You can do better next time. There's things to fix, but there's still going to be a next time, which is a blessing.
Yeah.
So,
man, that is, I can see how, in the acting world, man, it could feel very powerless. Like you're getting tossed around and it's not happening the way that you want it to. It's not happening in the timeline maybe that you want it to. Mm-hmm. And I think that what's interesting is, like, we're talking about gratitude and how you're now developing this feeling of it's building you to be a better person every time you're learning. And I think that even on this journey of making this podcast, man, you said it, like, if you're in the acting world, you know what this feels like. And I just think about somebody listening to this on the other side and saying, man, I can really relate to that. And I feel like it's so, like, maybe it's my life goal or my passion and I have no control, but they may not feel or understand that, again, that there is a place where you can live there and be on the other side, but also feel gratitude and feel like this is for a purpose.
Right.
And I think that even just the fact that this is, maybe not necessarily the goal that you had in terms of acting, but this is, again, another stepping stone in your journey, your life journey. Being able to share that message and possibly impact somebody in a way where they're hearing it and they've had your struggles and now they're hopefully learning that there's an opportunity there to be better and feel better about what they're doing. I think that that's huge. So thank you for sharing that. I think that that's really impactful for sure.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go further in here to the number 5 point, which is gratitude strengthens relationships and attracts positivity. Man, this one, I feel it so much. I resonate with this so much. So a story about us even starting this gratitude podcast. We started the gratitude podcast and we were really looking for a message that would create some positivity in the world and hopefully help others along with ourselves in this journey to try and be a better person, better human being, and be more joy-filled, all these things, right? Mm-hmm. But we practiced it. We did a couple of episodes, did some practice, and my life started bringing things in that were profound. Like, so we went to Epic Universe. We got to do one of the previews, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But
Thank you, Joey.
Yes, we got to do the preview, and we just walk in, right? And there's this guy coming over to us, and I'm like, all right, I don't know who this guy is, but it's like a tour guide or something like that. He's like, hey, you guys look like a beautiful family. And I was like caught off guard by that. I was like, this guy's trying to sell us something or something, right? But he's like, you guys look like such a beautiful and fun family. What if we gave you guys a VIP experience for free to the park? And basically that's like a fast pass with food included and like a tour guide that can take us directly to the entrance of the rides.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just like so strange to be in this moment where we're starting to practice gratitude and, this happens to us. And I know that can seem like, oh, well, it's just a coincidence, but I truly feel like when I'm in this mode of like practicing gratitude, another strange thing that happened, okay, to not get sidetracked, but when I'm practicing gratitude, people come into my life and things come into my life that normally I feel like wouldn't happen. So another example is we were at the preview and we saw some friends that I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
And Ben, we actually shared a story about Ben, which he had a big impact on my life at one point. But I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So I get to talk to him. And I shared the story about how he impacted my life, and he was so grateful that I shared that with him, and I was so grateful that I got to share it with him. And it was like we were sharing this moment. But then he messaged me later and was like, hey, look, I want to stay in touch. I'm so glad that we got to see each other today, and I'm thankful for you again sharing that message with me. And we're gonna hang out this weekend actually. So again, I just feel like this is so true in my life. Gratitude strengthens relationships and attracts positivity. I feel like it really does create this magnetism of good, positive things that are happening in my life when I'm really in that mode. So. That's my experience, and I just wanted to share a couple of things that have really been cool about us on this new journey.
Yeah, gratitude is contagious. You want to
Yeah.
be around people who are grateful, who are positive, who are kind. Who wants to be around someone who's negative? No one.
Right.
And I think when you practice that genuinely, you really do attract people, whether it's at work, in your own relationships, people from your past who come across you again. People can see a difference in how you behave. And I think for me, I'm somebody who's always grateful to people. And obviously, gratitude isn't just about saying thank you, but appreciating their existence, their presence, anything that anyone does, especially when they're getting out of their comfort to help you in some way or another. You've done that for me many times. You did that. I remember I had some issues with my car. You traveled to my house to help me fix my car. We didn't fix it, but the fact that you went there and you helped me.
Fix it.
No, we didn't.
I had that story played completely. I'm like, yeah, I fixed this car. It was great.
No, but it helped. It helped, and the fact that you were there for me in that struggle, and obviously we can go on and on for hours about all the things that people have done for us that have helped us get to today, including again Joey getting us the preview passes. All of those things fall into place, and when you're open to that experience of gratitude in your daily life, you're opening that window for those blessings to come through. And yeah, it's just something that on a daily basis can change your life.
Yeah, I think that Sadhguru talked a little bit about a point that we had made in one of our previous podcasts, how when you're experiencing gratitude, it opens you up to wanting to share that with others. So you actually, in a social setting, it can make you more adept to meeting new people or having new conversations with people, versus if you are, again, outside of yourself, focused on the things that you want to achieve or the hustle and bustle, you can be more closed off. And I think that what I feel is that, again, it not only attracts good things into my life, but it allows me to feel like I can share the great things that are happening in my life more freely. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's not even necessarily the great things that are happening in my life. Like, I want to tell people it is a beautiful day when, that to me is something that occurs every day. Most of the time we're in a beautiful place here in Orlando. Yeah. But it just makes me want to voice those feelings of, again, gratitude more and more. Whereas in moments where I'm not focused on gratitude, it can be, the thought just isn't even there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that leads us to our final point, which is that true happiness comes from appreciating the present moment. And gratitude is about being present. I think in general, you can say that, because when you're thinking about the here and now, you can be grateful. Whereas when you're thinking about what I don't have, you're not there anymore. You're somewhere else. Your mind is elsewhere, thinking about what could be, what I need, what I don't have, instead of, hey, you're here right now. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having this conversation with me.
Yeah.
It shifts our minds in a way.
Yeah. You made a point earlier that Sadhguru said something about how happiness is not something that you can...
You don't find happiness, you create happiness.
That's it. Yeah.
Which is such a... In that quote itself, it's so life-changing, because we always think about the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
It's literally in our, not Declaration of Independence, It is a declaration.
You're
of
the guy
independence,
that would
is it?
know that. I have no idea.
Yeah, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
There
So
you go.
yes, so it's even in that document that is changing the world perspective, right? Because
Yeah.
that's one of our rights. But happiness isn't about the pursuit of it; it's about making it. You create your happiness today, right now. You have the power to do that, no matter where you are in life.
Yeah, I think that that is so beautiful when you think about the power of that phrase, you know, you create it. What does that mean? That means that you don't have to look far. You know, a lot of times in my life, it's what are the extra things that I'm going to bring into my life that are going to make me happier? Not necessarily happy, but like a Lamborghini is pretty exciting, right?
Yeah.
So,
Very exciting.
but then I also think about like, and I think that it's just so hard from my perspective of, you know, I have a lot of things and I have so much to be grateful for, but I think about people around the world that don't have all the amenities that I have, and they're just so joy filled. And you know, and a lot of times I think about these kids, like when you're watching the commercials and they're kind of in a tribal setting and they're dancing and having fun playing, and they really don't have, again, a lot of the creature comforts that I get to experience. But just looking at the joy on their face, man, it makes me feel like it's it's a it's insane that we convince ourselves that we have to have these things to be happy. Because I really feel like when I look at children in general, I think that life, you know, a lot of times it teaches us that you have to accomplish, you have to be so successful, you have to have all this money, and then that's going to bring happiness. And not to say again that those things can't be true, but I think that what is false is that you have to have that. I think that the truth is that you don't really have to have much. I mean, you really don't have to have much at all to experience just overwhelming abundance and joy. And I think that that is what, man, I resonate with so much in trying to practice gratitude and really get to that point where I'm not looking, you know, at the Lamborghinis or the Ferraris or you know,
are.
and
You are a little bit.
okay. I mean, look, that's a hobby that I love, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that it's hard for me not to disassociate for sure. Like that that being a life goal or something that I really love as a hobby. Cars like that, that's going to bring me happiness. It's almost instinctive. It's like that's what I feel when I look at that car. I'm like, oh God, if I had that, I'd be so happy. But and I think that I would be happy in moments, but it's not what brings my joy, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, relearning that true happiness is just being here and experiencing life in this way and having the ability to discuss gratitude on a podcast like this, where hopefully it's impacting other people that are like-minded or maybe not like-minded, but I hopefully it's creating a positive message for them. I think that, man, that to me, if I can really focus on that, that beats a Lamborghini every day. Sure. But again, I think it's the practice of really going there every day and focusing on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think God examines our hearts in a beautiful way. Because when I was listening to this podcast, it was this morning, and I was actually driving through Islesworth.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful place.
Beautiful place.
Yeah.
But for those of you who don't know, maybe you're not local, maybe you're not familiar with the area, it's a place filled with mansions. So I'm literally driving as I'm listening to Sadhguru saying this about how life and gratitude isn't about lack, but about finding purpose, staying in the present moment. But as I look to my left and as I look to my right, I'm seeing mansions, I'm seeing the Lamborghinis, I'm seeing all the huge cars, and it's like, you know, life isn't about that. Yeah. Life isn't about you pursuing this or pursuing that. It's about staying in the moment. You know, you're driving to record a podcast about staying in the moment and finding gratitude in the little things, essentially. And so it was an easy way for me to practice right in that moment what I'm learning and, you know, practice what you preach, which is you can't stay distracted. You can't think about the chase. You can't think about what's coming in the future. You have to stay right here in that moment. At that moment, I was driving in a car, which people in those tribes that you were mentioning would probably die to have that experience, to just be able to drive somewhere, to go get some food, to eat well, to have medicine, to maybe have loved ones, to have the freedom to learn, to go to a school and do all of these things that again we do take for granted. But in that moment I could kind of see that flash before my eyes and just be grateful for the fact that I can breathe. You know, that if I wanted to, I could pull over and get a coffee, get something to eat. I have such huge blessings. Being able to walk, you know, when I know that maybe there's people watching who can't do that, but you're still blessed in other ways. I think all of those things are beautiful and they do help us in this journey towards being able to stay present, being able to stay grateful for what we have, disregard what we don't have, because many of those things are things that may not make us happy when we attain them. That's one of the things, if we go back to being an actor and fame, most of them will tell you fame is not what you want. I think Jim Carrey has a quote that says, I hope you get rich and famous, because the moment you do, you're going to know that's not what you wanted at all.
Wow.
You know, and I see people like Shia LaBeouf, whom I love as an actor, and he, you know, he's very open about his struggles, but most of them come from the fact that he wanted something in his life, and he was filling those needs with fame or getting the next project, and really it just kind of messed him up mentally, physically, emotionally, to the point where thankfully he's found faith and he's rebuilt his life brick by brick. But understanding what's important in life, which isn't money, it's not the houses, it's not the cars, it's not the big acting roles. That to somebody like me who's waiting for that big break, you know, I could fall into the pit of saying, that's what I want. I want that big role, but that's not really what I want. I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to speak to people and be a guiding light that leads them to enjoying happiness in that very moment and being grateful, which is part of the reason why we started this podcast, to help people on their journeys as we grow as well.
Wow. That was really well said. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that many will relate to what you just said. I think that I've definitely driven through Islesworth and felt that way. But no, I mean,
Who
beautiful,
hasn't?
beautifully said.
Yeah.
I think to recap on the message here, you know, we've shared some stories with you guys, just how this has impacted our lives, and we've given you some quick topics here that we've addressed. But I think that really, it the practice of gratitude has to be.
We hear a little bit of singing in the background.
Yeah.
Aren't we grateful? I mean, that's
Yes, yeah.
such a blessing in itself.
That's beautiful
you know?
to hear that in the
Yeah.
background. It is. I mean, I think that it's funny because, you know, we're trying to be professional and make this look really great. But to hear my little girl back in the background screaming and having a blast, like, look, that's something that I have to feel grateful about.
Absolutely.
And I love, you know.
Yeah.
I think that again, just going over what we've learned here from Sadhguru, though, it is beautiful how he expresses it and the teaching of how he kind of discusses this. You know, I would encourage you guys to really look at the podcast that we mentioned earlier as a reference to the things that we're talking about. Again, a lot of this applies to our lives, and we have stories about it, and we wanted to share that with you. But I think one of the key goals here is just understanding that gratitude is a mindset, and there's, you know, there's big shifts, there's also little shifts, and hopefully some of what we talked about today can create a normalized practice in your life where you can really start to look through a different lens, a gratitude lens, at the things that you're doing in your day to day. Because I know that a lot of times, again, it can seem like practicing anything for self development is like something that you're going to do when times are tough, or maybe something that you're going to do to try and get to the next level. But I think that it can be difficult to be consistent and have a regular practice. And I think that that's really what we're trying to hopefully share with the world, is a regular practice on how to be grateful in everyday life. And, hopefully some of the things that we discussed here will help shift your mindset so that you can see things again in a different lens on a day to day.
We would just like for you guys to if you like this video, share this video to somebody who may need this in their life, and subscribe, because that really would help us out.
Yeah, we are a startup channel, guys. So every little like, comment, share, subscription means the world to us. We're thankful that you guys want content like this and that you're watching us, but we would love to grow our channel. Hopefully that will allow us to do more things, interview more people, do some really cool stuff that hopefully gets this message out to the world. So we thank you for watching this, and hopefully you'll tune in next week.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys.